What happens when nature's boundaries blur? When the wild and the domestic reach across every instinct they were born with and choose each other anyway? What you are about to witness is not a fairy tale. It is not staged. It is not what any scientist predicted. This is the story of Kibo and Buddy, and the 2 years that changed everything we thought we knew about love, loyalty, and what it means to belong. Deep in the misty highlands of Rwanda, where the morning fog rolls like silver ribbons through ancient volcanic forests, the silverback gorillas move like kings through the undergrowth here. The air smells of rain and bark and something older than memory. This is a world that does not ask permission. It simply is. But on a cold Tuesday morning in March, a ranger named Thomas found something that stopped the forest cold. Barely 3 pounds, no bigger than a human newborn, wrapped in the torn remnants of what had been his mother's embrace, a baby gorilla, alone, shaking, his enormous eyes blinking at a world that had already taken everything from him. Poachers had moved through the night before, and they had left this behind. Thomas radioed the gorilla protection sanctuary at the edge of the forest. He wrapped the infant in his jacket, held him against his chest, and ran. That sanctuary was run by a man named Oliver, a wildlife rehabilitator who had spent 30 years coaxing broken animals back toward life. Oliver had seen grief in animals before. He had seen trauma. But when he looked at this infant gorilla, trembling, refusing to eat, curling into a tight ball and pressing his face against whatever surface was nearest, Oliver recognized something beyond fear. This was a creature mourning, a creature who had lost in one night the warmth of a mother, the safety of a family group, the entire architecture of his existence. For 72 hours, the baby, now named Kibo, meaning bright in Swahili, would not stop crying. A soft, rhythmic whimpering that echoed through the sanctuary walls like a question with no answer. The staff tried everything: supplemental feeding, skin-to-skin contact, recorded sounds of gorilla groups in the wild. Nothing worked. And then Buddy wandered in. Buddy was a 4-year-old golden retriever who had lived at the sanctuary since he was a puppy, the unofficial emotional backbone of every traumatized animal that came through those doors. He had a way of reading rooms that no human ever could. Quiet, unhurried, ears low, tail moving in that slow, patient arc that says, "I am here. I am not leaving." Oliver had not planned to introduce them. He was in fact stepping out to take a phone call when Buddy slipped through the half-open door of Kibo's room, padded silently across the floor, and pressed his warm golden flank directly against the terrified infant gorilla. Kibo froze. Buddy did not move. 1 second, 5, 10, and then, slowly, with the painful deliberateness of something learning to trust for the second time in a life that had already been broken once, Kibo reached out one tiny black hand and grabbed a fistful of golden fur. He did not let go for 4 hours. Oliver watched through the doorway, barely breathing. His 30 years had not prepared him for this. The crying stopped. Kibo's whole body, which had been clenched like a fist since the moment he arrived, began to soften. His breathing slowed. His eyes, those enormous liquid eyes, closed for the first time since he had been found. He slept. Buddy stayed perfectly, impossibly still. From that night forward, they were inseparable. Kibo ate when Buddy was beside him. He explored when Buddy led. He watched the older animal with an intensity that bordered on reverence, mimicking the way Buddy stretched in the morning, the way he tilted his head at unfamiliar sounds, even the way he flopped sideways in a sunbeam with complete, boneless surrender. Within 3 weeks, Kibo had doubled his food intake. His eyes were bright. He was playing. Playing, a word that seemed impossible the night Thomas carried him out of the forest. Months passed. Kibo grew. The two of them developed a language entirely of their own, a series of huffs, nudges, and glances that the sanctuary staff could observe but never fully decode. Buddy would push his nose against Kibo's chest, a greeting that Kibo began returning, pressing his wide forehead against Buddy's. When strangers approached the sanctuary, Buddy would position himself in front of Kibo, not aggressive, never aggressive, just present. He is mine. I am his. Then came the morning that no one will ever forget. 14 months into their bond, a dominant male from a nearby wild group came crashing through the sanctuary's outer fence during a storm, enormous, angry, disoriented. He moved towards the smaller enclosures with the blunt momentum of something that doesn't yet know what it will do, only that it is capable of anything. Kibo was in the yard. Buddy saw it first. What happened next was not bravery in the way movies imagine it, explosive and dramatic. It was quieter than that, and therefore more terrifying. Buddy walked forward, slowly, deliberately, placing himself between Kibo and 600 pounds of wild mountain gorilla. He did not bark, he did not charge. He simply stood there, trembling visibly from nose to tail, and refused to move. The wild gorilla stopped. Something in that stillness, that wordless refusal to yield, confused him. He huffed. He beat his chest once, and then, in a moment no behaviorist will ever fully explain, he turned and walked away. The fence was repaired. The wild gorilla was safely redirected. Kibo, pressed against Buddy's side, slowly unclenched his fists from golden fur. Oliver stood at the edge of the yard for a long time, saying nothing. He had spent 30 years in wildlife. He had studied bonds, documented behaviors, published papers, and in all of that, he had never seen anything as unrehearsed, as unscientific, as stubbornly, impossibly real as what he had just witnessed. Love does not read the literature. It does not check species. It does not wait for permission. 6 months later, a healthy, thriving Kibo was successfully introduced to a gorilla family group in a protected reserve. Not a final goodbye, but a beginning, a future restored. On his last morning at the sanctuary, he sat for 20 minutes beside Buddy, grooming the golden fur with careful, precise fingers, making sure every strand was exactly right. Buddy's tail wagged the whole time. Justice, it turns out, sometimes looks like this. A small hand holding golden fur in the dark, refusing to let go, and a world that just this once held on back. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that connection finds a way even through the hardest nights, give this video a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. There are more stories like this one waiting. Don't miss them.